Part 3 of our series called Spiritual Journeys. And so far we've come to the conclusion that Judaism teaches that this whole existence, this whole life we're living now, is the journey of our soul, of our divine vital essence in a physical world. And that's what we're doing. It is a journey, whether we're consciously living it or not consciously living it. We've got a journey, and like every journey, there are really 4 parts of every journey. Number 1 is the starting point. Where am I now? Number 2 is your goal, your destination. Where do I want to get to? Number 3 is what resources and tools do I have? What's my toolkit to get me there? And number 4 is what are the steps I have to take using my toolkits to be able to arrive at my destination. So really life's kind of easy in a way. There's just 3 steps really. You have to work out what's the destination, what's the purpose, what's my goal, what are the steps I need to take in order to reach that goal, and then just have the self-discipline to do those steps, and then you'll hopefully end up where you're meant to end up. So the starting point we really spoke a bit about yesterday, and we said Abraham Avinu was told to lech lecha, to go, to leave your starting point. And we said there are really 3 aspects of your starting point, and that's your nature and your nurture and your society. So your starting point now on your journey is you got to work out where are you now, and what does that mean, where are you now? It means what do you believe, what are your values, what are your experiences, what character traits do you have, what skills do you have, what dreams do you have? Many people come up to me and say, I'm trying to work out what career path, what should I be doing with my life? And the truth is, you just got to work out what experiences do you have, what issues do you see in the world, what skills and talents do you have, and put them all together, and you're going to work out what's going to be best for you. So you've got to know who you are. And whilst we're in this world, who we are is really made up of our belief systems and our values and our experiences. So we said that Abraham was told to not stay where he was. You've got to work out, do I have the right nature and the right nurture? I've got to overcome my nature to some extent. So Kabbalah teaches us that really our nature is made up of the 4 elements. And the 4 elements are fire, water, air, and earth. And we each have these components within us to different levels, different degrees. And each of them can be used in a positive way or a negative way. So if you have a lot of fire, that could mean you're very enthusiastic and you're very passionate and you're very warm. But it could also mean you're very quick to anger and you're very arrogant. Or if you're a very earth person, that could mean that you're very stable and very secure and very reliable and trustworthy. Or earth is heavy, so you could be very lazy or very depressed. So the starting point is you have been given a spiritual nature, spiritual makeup of these 4 things, and you've got to work out what your own one is, and then you've got to be using them in the right way. It says that David HaMelech, King David, and Esau, Jacob's not so good son, they actually had the same composition. They had the same nature, very fiery, but it's just that Esau used it in a very negative way, and David HaMelech used it in a positive way. So we have this essence. How are we going to use our nature and our essence? The second point is your destination. Where are you trying to get to? What's the goal? And I said in my first class that many people say to me, when I say, what are you living for? What's the goal? They say to me, well, I'll see where life takes me. And that's not a very good attitude, because life doesn't necessarily always take you to anywhere good. If you don't know your goal, you're never going to reach that goal. I work with many people struggling in relationships. Why? Because they said, we'll grow together. We'll make it work. And many people don't grow together. If you don't have the same values and you don't have the same goals, but you've just got this strong physical attraction, or you built up an emotional bond through experiencing life together, that's not going to necessarily make a good relationship. You have to know what's your starting point and what's your end point. The truth actually is, there is a place for just going and seeing, going with the flow. When I lived in Asia for 6 years, traveling around, and one time when I was in Laos, country next to Thailand, I think they call it Laos in English, but in Laos they call it Lao. So I got a bus to the end of the bus, very end of the bus route in northern Thailand, and I got off the bus and I just started walking into the mountains, and I had a very small backpack, and I didn't have a map, and I just walked. I just wanted, you know what, I just want to see where this takes me. And so there is a place for that. I ended up in a very small village in far 20 kilometers up into the mountains, no running water, no electricity. They'd never seen a white person before. And that night they all sat round me and they started asking me questions. I speak Lao. It's very similar to Thai. I'd lived in Thailand for a year and a half before that. And they were like, do you have rivers in your country, white man? And I was like, yes, big rivers, because their whole consciousness was the river. That's where they got their water from. This big brown river that they drank from and washed in and cooked with and went to the bathroom in. That was just, for me to drink the water, I had to filter it 10 times through a t-shirt and boil it and put iodine in it, and it still wasn't very good water. So even that journey, just, I didn't have any set destination. I still had a general goal, which was to experience life and to use my skills and survival. I actually once went on an expedition to Changbaishan Mountain, a beautiful mountain on the border of China and North Korea. And I went with a friend and we did a whole survival expedition for a few days. Lots of crazy stories, don't have time for that now. But so there is a place for just saying, I'll just see where it takes me, but not in your life in general. In parts of your life, just go and have some adventure and variety and curiosity. That's great. But your life itself, you actually need to kind of work out where you're going, take it a bit seriously. So what does Judaism teach? What is the destination? There's a few ideas here. One idea comes from the Torah. The Torah in Deuteronomy and Devarim, chapter 10, verse 12 says, Ve'ata Yisrael ma Hashem elkecha asher miyemach. And now, Jewish people, what does Hashem, your God, ask from you? Ki im, only this, li'ira et Hashem elkecha, which means to have yira. So I don't have time to give a whole class on yira now, and there are very many different levels of yira. But what the Torah is really asking for us is God consciousness. Yira comes from the word ro'eh, to see. So it means to see godliness in everything, to see God all around you. We said that God is really a timeless, spaceless, beyond time and space reality that then created time and space, and therefore is the material, is the substance of time and space. The reason people used to worship trees, idol worship with trees, because they were actually on a high spiritual level, so they could see godliness in the trees. They made a mistake and then said the tree's God. But really, they could see godliness in everywhere. Now they say science says there's a unified field theory. That really, they split the atom and they protons and neutrons and electrons and get smaller, smaller, smaller. And now they're sub-quantum quarks. It's all energy. Everything's made up of one material substance. And we say that is God. Do we see God everywhere we go all the time? And not only that, in everything that happens to us. Someone steps on my foot. I bang my knee. Difficult things happen. Good things happen in my life. Am I just God conscious? So this is what we're trying to do. This is why our journey is a spiritual one. Can we bring spirituality into this physical world? And we really said that is the path of the Jewish master, the Jewish enlightened master, is how do you balance spirituality and physicality? Because our soul is a spiritual entity. It's come down into this world and it's been given a challenge. The challenge is, can you remain spiritual and God conscious when it's very difficult to? I can't see God in this world, and I've got pressures, and I've got an ego, and I've got bad character traits, and I've got physical cravings, and I've got so many things that are cutting me off from my essence, my divine soul essence, that I've got to work so hard to find spirituality. And through hard work, and we know this in every area of life, that's how you get bigger, and that's how you get stronger. And when I lived in Thailand, I used to do silent meditation retreats. And my master was called Tan Medi, a very sweet Buddhist monk. And he left his family to seek enlightenment. And he was a lawyer in Bangkok. He had a child. But he left his family and now he sits by a pond in this beautiful meditation center, just meditating, never touching money, sleeping on the floor, not eating so much nice food, because their path to spirituality is separate from physicality. And Judaism says, no. Our path is be within. You can overcome your ego easily when you're sitting in a temple and you don't have any responsibilities, and you don't have to pay the rent, and you don't have your kids crying, and you don't have everything going on around you. But when life's very difficult and challenging and you have responsibilities, can you overcome your ego then? That's a very, very high level. So that's really, in itself, is just really the training ground to refine the soul and to work and create the relationship. So when we die, when the body dies, we never die because we are essentially a soul. When the body dies, we go back, and the ultimate destination is that God-conscious place. It's a very powerful idea. And the language they speak in Olam Haba, the language they speak is Dveikus, is God-consciousness. So to the extent that we've learnt the language in this world, we're going to be able to enjoy the fruits of our destination in the world to come. So, for example, if there's a play, someone says there's an amazing play happening next year, get ready, it's the best play, profound and deep and moving and hysterical, amazing play, and I arrive at the play and it's all in Japanese, then I can't understand it. Well, I can understand Japanese a bit, but to the extent that I learned Japanese in the year leading up to the play, I'm going to enjoy the play. So to the extent that we learn God consciousness in this physical reality, we're going to enjoy the destination, which is God consciousness in the world to come. There's actually another idea of our destination, and the truth is that we're already there. That's what Judaism teaches. Judaism teaches that you're already enlightened. It's just covered up, because essentially you're a soul, and the soul is always perfect. And the soul is always connected, and the soul is always joyful, and the soul is always conscious, and the soul is always giving and loving and sweet, and that's you are enlightened already. It's just that we're disconnected from that. It's been covered up by all of our nature, nurture and society basically, and we've got to now reveal that the destination is really within us. It sounds a bit cheesy, but Judaism really teaches that. It's a very famous story. I believe it's actually a true story, but even if it's not true, it really should be true. Of a man, very poor man called Yitzhak ben Yechiel, and he lived in Krakow. And he was poor, very happy though, but he had a dream. And he had a dream that there was treasure buried under a bridge in Prague. So he woke up in the morning and was like, okay, it's just a dream. But he had the dream the next night and the next night. And it was a recurring dream. So eventually he said, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. I keep having this dream. I'll go and I'll see. So he managed to raise money and he got a train to Prague. And sure enough, he actually saw the bridge of his dream. And he said, okay, I'm going to dig under the bridge. I'm going to find the treasure. But when he got there was a soldier guarding the bridge. And he looked a bit suspicious. So the soldier said to him, you know, what are you doing? And he couldn't lie. So he said, well, I had a dream. I had a dream that there's a treasure buried under this bridge, and I want to dig under the bridge and get the treasure. And the guard just laughs at him. He says, you honestly follow your dream? Are you crazy? I've had a dream. I have a dream every night for the last week about there's a Jew in Krakow, and his name's Yitzhak ben Yechiel, and he's got a big treasure buried underneath his stove in his house. But I'm not stupid, and I'm not running after my dreams. Are you crazy? At which point Yitzhak gets the idea. Sometimes you have to go very far from home to work out that really it's all there. It's all there. So he went home and he dug under his stove and he found lots of money. Apparently he built a shul with the money. So that's what Judaism's teaching actually. The starting point, the essential starting point being your soul, is the destination too. You just got to get back to where you came from. It's a like circular journey. You've been thrown out, and really you're just trying to come back and reveal who you really are. So that's our destination. That's what we're living for in our spiritual journey of life. So now we've got to understand, what are our resources? What are our tools? What do we have in our toolkit? When I went to Asia for the 6 years, I had 9 kilograms of stuff in a backpack, and I had a couple of pairs of shorts and trousers and some t-shirts and a string, 10-meter string to tie up my mosquito net and hang up my washing if I had to wash it in rivers, and to fix my bag. And I had a head torch, and I had some books. I knew exactly what I had in my toolkit, and I knew what I needed and what I could do based on what I have in my toolkit. One of my favorite books ever is called the SAS Survival Handbook. The SAS is the Secret Air Service, maybe. Special Air Service is a top unit in the British Army. and it's a survival handbook. It's amazing. It's got how to build tents, how to build fires, how to take out venom if you get stung by a snake, how to survive an earthquake. It's got everything. It's an amazing book. And he starts off by saying the key to survival, and the biggest survival expert, is be prepared. So don't rely on smashing two stones together make fire, just bring matches. So what do we have? What is our toolkit now? The number one thing we have in our lives to take us on the journey is the guidebook. We've got the guidebook. We've got the SAS, Survival Handbook. It's called the Torah, SAS. I want to think of a good thing about that. Shalom and Simcha. There you go. Shalom and Simcha Handbook. How do we live the life? How do I know what I can do? How do I know what I can't do? What's good for me? How am I going to... What steps do I need to take to reach my goal? What's going to take me there? What's going to cut me off from my soul? And my goal is soul. So what's going to feed my soul? And what's going to damage my soul? So we're then told that we have these three faculties, these three essential ways to express our soul in the world. Unfortunately, they can be taken over by our body ego and used to express our body ego, but really we have these tools, and they're called the garments of our soul, and they are thought, speech, and action. Thought, speech, action. TSA. So you travel, thought, speech, and action. So what does this mean? When the soul comes down, it comes down into a body. Now your body is the vehicle for your soul. It's the transport. It's how you're going on. How is the soul going on its journey? What transport system is it taking? Is it taking trains? Been on like a 39-hour train journey in India. I actually went on a 6-day train journey, the Trans-Siberian Express from Beijing to Moscow. Anyway, different story. So what's your train? Your train is your body. It's like it's a spacesuit. For you to survive in space, you need a spacesuit, otherwise you'd die. For the soul to survive in this physical reality, it needs a spacesuit, and that's your body. That's your body. So your body isn't who you are. It's just a vehicle for you. Many people get their self-esteem based on my body. Oh, look how good my body is. That's not who you are. It's like getting a self-esteem based on your clothes. I guess people do as well. Or their car. These are all external things. They're not even yourself. Don't get your self-esteem based on external things. So what we are taught is you've got to use your body in the right way. Use your body. Number one is you've got to keep it very strong and very healthy. The more strong and healthy your body is, the better the soul is going to be able to go on its journey. The second thing to do with the body, with this realm of action, is mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is how to have conscious action in the world. What are the actions that you can take on this journey along the way? What do you have to kind of pick up to feed your soul? Because your soul doesn't get fed, it doesn't get vitality, it doesn't get pleasure from cheesecake and from Facebook likes for your post. It doesn't. Ego and physical stuff doesn't feed your soul. So your soul needs to be connected to its source again. It's like if you go snorkeling. If you go underwater, that's not your natural habitat. You can't survive. So you need a snorkel to connect you back up. So you're breathing air. So too your soul, when it comes down into this earth, it's not its natural habitat. So it needs to be able to suck air. It needs to get its vitality, and that's what a mitzvah is. A mitzvah is there to feed your soul. And obviously you can do mitzvahs in a very unconscious way, but then you're missing the point. A mitzvah done in a very conscious way, and everything we're doing is a mindfulness tool to remind us, oh, remember you're on a journey, because this world is a big distraction. You can go on a journey. I'm going to go somewhere on my journey, and I've only got an hour to spend there. But I get caught up along the way, and I see a beautiful restaurant, and I stop in the restaurant for a little bit, and then I see these people are having a party, and then there's a beautiful woman, and there's all these things. And by the time I get to where I need to get to, I don't have any time left. So this world can be a big distraction, or it could be a tool. It could be a tool for us to actually connect, to get to live our journey. So every mezuzah and every bracha I make before I eat, that turns eating into part of the spiritual journey. And basically our main action in this world is chesed, is giving to other people. There are other people as well on our journey. That we have companions on our journey. And so part of our journey, on a deep spiritual level, part of our journey is marriage. You can do the journey and reach the destination without getting married, but it's a very big tool, it's a very big help thing. to be married, to help you get to a higher level of spirituality and overcoming your ego. So very much part of our journey is the other people on our journey and how much we're giving to them. What can I do for other people? That's action. Then you have speech. Speech is how you express yourself in the world. What are you using your speech for? The Torah tells us that God created the world using the power of speech. So you create your world using the power of speech as well. There's negative speech, which is lashon hara, saying bad things about people, or gossip, or many types of bad speech, lying and cheating. And then there's neutral speech. So I'm talking about the football and the news and coronavirus. I'm talking about these things. You're not bad, but is it meaningful? Is it helping you on your journey? And then there's good speech. And good speech is I'm uplifting other people, or I'm asking the way. I want to know how to get there. I want to be connected. And the ultimate use of speech is called prayer. I'm going to give a whole class series on prayer next week. But are we using our prayer to connect, our speech to connect to the guide, to the master, to where I'm going? We've got to be using our speech in the right way. And then we have our thought. Remember, thought, speech, and action. So our thought, basically your whole experience of reality is just whatever you're thinking. Your thoughts create your belief system, and it creates your mood and your emotions, and it creates everything, and your character traits. So whatever you're thinking and whatever thoughts you're making significant, that is your reality. So if you're just dwelling on anxious thoughts, then you're living in a world of anxiety. But your thoughts, your mind, is your ultimate tool. That is the ultimate tool on your journey. It's your mind. Now, it's also your ultimate enemy. Like all of these things, speech is a good tool, or it's an enemy. You can use it wrong. And your physicality, you could use it for the wrong things or for the right things. You could use it to look good and feel good, or you can use it to be good and do good and change and be spiritual. That's the whole battle of being in this world. But your thoughts particularly, are you having refined thoughts? Are you thinking about things you should be thinking about? Are you creating a reality? And really, I think there are three main tools in your resource box of what your thoughts can be. Number one is ratzon, willpower. If you have a strong motivating willpower to achieve your goal, you will achieve your goal. You've got to really, really want it. When I was training martial arts, I used to get beaten up the whole time, and the next day you're aching, and I just don't want to go again. But because I believed in the goal, I really wanted my black belt. Then I went through the difficulty and I made sacrifices. I'm willing to put in the effort. Willpower is a very important thing. So you can use your mind for willpower. The second one, which is very connected to that, is self-control. Self-control. I'm going to use my mind to say, I'm not going to do something that is not good for me, even if it feels very nice. So my goal is to win a gold medal in the Olympic Games. So I'm not going to smoke that and drink that and spend my life watching Netflix, because that's not taking me towards my goal. The other part of self-discipline is doing the good things even though it's difficult. Self-discipline means not doing the bad things even though it feels good, and doing the good things even though it doesn't necessarily feel good initially. And then the final, really ultimate power of your thoughts is positive attitude. What's your attitude to life? Do you give up easily? Are you a victim? Are you a pessimist? Or are you an optimist? And are you confident, and you have good self-esteem, and you have appreciation, and you focus on what you do have, not on what you don't have? So your mind is the ultimate tool. So this is what we have. Your resource pack. Firstly, you've got the guidebook, the Torah, and then you've been given the tools of thought, speech, and action. Can you use these tools in the right way, or are you not going to? And if you use them in the right way, you're going to reach the destination. So that's basically what we're trying to do. You've been given a journey, you've been given a purpose, and you've been given the tools, and the steps you need to take is use the tools in the right way, and that's what the Torah is guiding us towards. For example, a mitzvah combines thought, speech, and action. When I put on my tefillin, that's an action, and then I speak, I say words of bracha, of blessing, and I think, hopefully I have the right kavanah, the right intention. I'm thinking about God consciousness. Why am I doing this? I can put on my tefillin and say the bracha, but be thinking about my business. But when I've aligned my tools, my thought, speech, and action, I aligned it with my soul, I'm going to manifest my purpose and actually reach the destination and be able to leave my starting point and change my nature and overcome my nurture and question my society and hopefully end up reaching the top of the mountain from where I'll see the beautiful view. Tomorrow, part 4, we're going to talk a bit about really practically how we're going to be doing this in our lives. I love you guys.
Story of people who want to build their lives together has come across as the hero, the conquering hero in the face of all likelihood, and unfortunately that has also really played us. Like, our concept of romance is not based on, the rational things like, do we really respect each other and do we want to build a life together? It's got to be, it's just got to be crazy, right? Like, the proposals nowadays have to be crazy. They can't just be someone saying, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Would you do me the wonderful service of joining me in that? It has to be outlandish and exotic and exciting and better than everybody else and new and different, and these new concepts have sort of really threaded their way into our concept of what's considered romantic. And so we are plagued with pictures of what a romantic couple should look like, and it's either extremely superficial and very, very pretty to look at, or it's completely unlikely and unusual and made no sense in real life. And unfortunately, the EP model of romance has taken over all conversations of, shared values. And it's really shared values that allows us to stay, in love with each other for all those years. But no one's really mentioned that to us, right? It's got to be a fling. It's got to be, a boy and a girl on the opposite sides of a lagoon who catch each other's eyes and have trouble finding each other. It's got to be exotic. And sometimes relationships just do better when they're actually suited. That's sad, isn't it? But not really. It's a wonderful thing when a relationship works. It's not a wonderful thing when a relationship sounds outrageous and therefore it's exciting and has no chance of going the distance. That doesn't do anybody any good at all, unfortunately. Okay, so that's the next thing. This EP modeling that we get all over the media, all over our from our childhood stories to our favorite movies. They're romantic, and go through a bunch of your romantic movies and see how unlikely it is. My kids never understood why I didn't let them watch The Sound of Music, because it's really quite innocuous, but the romantic messages are, in spite of all our principles, in spite of what is right, love conquers all. And that's not a good model for your expectations for something that's going to just bring you deep happiness. Okay, next, the other problem with EP, there's quite a few problems, but we're just going to keep it short today. The other problem with EP is, and this is one that, this really brings a lot of questions up, and that is the problem of, if you think about your schooling, until Corona, if you think about your schooling, what you'll notice is that your schooling, since you were a very small child, has set you up, in the most cynical terms, to be a wonderful taxpayer. Okay, meaning, first of all, you have to be able to read and write so that you can graduate to the next class, and eventually you're going to be able to get your SATs, and eventually you're going to be able to get your, I don't know what you have in different countries, but your A-levels, your JDs, and hopefully that will allow you to get a great degree, and hopefully that will allow you to get a great job, and as a result of that, you will be successful. Success as defined, of course, by your financial stability or more. And what's happened is that there's a whole bunch of other parts of our lives, other skills, that have not had any time to be addressed. Okay, so we hopefully learn our ethics from our homes if we have time, even though we're in school most of the day, and we hopefully have picked up social skills in the unsupervised playground. But our entire day has been devoted, our entire school day, our waking hours, our thinking hours have been devoted to a definition of success that is completely productivity oriented. Now, by the way, the people who will agree with me most on this, I have always found, are my teachers. Whenever I'm teaching teachers who are so dedicated to children will always say, yes, and we do our best to slip in as many other skills as we possibly can, but it's so difficult because we've got so much curriculum to cover, but we really care about the kids, so we'll do everything that we can to find other ways to teach them little things in life, like, I don't know, kindness, respect, patience, values, future, and the reality is we are spending the vast majority of our day in productivity-oriented models where the value really is productivity. And as a result, we are completely equipped with all the skills necessary to be productive, to be successful in our careers, to get great jobs and great degrees. That is what school has given us. And about 100% of the time has gone to that, maybe 98, and like a little percentage of time has gone to building the other things in our life. So when I meet people, I often ask them, how important is it to you to have a good career? And everybody will tell me it's really important. And then I'll say to them, well, how important is it for you to have a great relationship and a great marriage? And so many people will be completely, up for that. They really want a great marriage and a great relationship. And sometimes we'll ask people, which one would they switch out, which was more important? And very often people will say, no, actually, if I could have a bit of both, but one was better than the other, I would pick a better relationship over a better career. Not everybody is, but some people say that. And then when I ask them, like, what skills do they have for building a great relationship? Nothing. They don't have the skills. The skills are what you happen to learn at home if you had any time, what you hope to have naturally, what society has told you is unacceptable, maybe, unless you live in a society where there are no relationship rules. And in terms of knowing what you really want and what's important to you and what brings you meaning and happiness and success and fulfillment and all those things that are going to play a huge role in your relationship, there just wasn't any time. Self-awareness, there just wasn't any time. I was busy becoming an accountant. I wasn't busy becoming a meditating yogi who knew what I really wanted in life. Like that. And some people had the chance to do that when they were 25. Maybe they traveled and maybe they got in touch with themselves and they found themselves, but most people don't have the opportunity to do that. And even then, that'll be after much heartbreak. So we have been extremely well prepped in our academic life, which is really from when we're 4 years old, to do very, very well and be very successful in the productivity aspect of our life, but not in the ethics or the relationship aspect of our life. And by the way, you'll notice Jewish schools is the opposite. In Jewish schools, it's all about the ethics, and there's very little prepping for financial success. And I'm not talking about schools that balance, all worlds. I'm talking about like the purely learning system. You learn all your ethics, then you learn a business when you're old enough to make some money. It's like the exact opposite. And I'm not talking about which is better, which is worse. And there's a wonderful, there's a lot to say for hybrids. But most of us have been to schools where really a good outcome is a great degree. And that is the good outcome. It's not, we don't get scored on how kind we are, how nice we are, how self-aware we are. We get scored on our maths and our English and our writing and our history and science, because that's how we've defined ourselves. And of course, when we enter the realm of relationship, and it's all about much deeper levels of self-awareness, much deeper levels of behavior, much deeper levels of how we're defined as people, we are clueless. We don't know what we're looking for. We don't know what we want to invest in. We don't know any of this stuff, so then we fall in love with somebody based on what we understood romance to be, and that was enough, and then we marry them, and then the real questions kick in because we bring up all these little new children, and we're just like, wow, I have no idea, actually no idea what my values are, because there was never any time for that. I just know how to be a doctor or an accountant, and I do that very well. And if marriage was about how well I did that, I'd be scoring A+. But unfortunately it demands much more for us, and we're not prepped for it. So it's a really important thing to give ourselves that time, to give ourselves what school never really gave us, which is all the self-awareness necessary to make sure that we're choosing right and we're relating right. Okay, looks like I've got time for one more. The other thing, of course, which is a small thing, but I think it plays a big role as well, is that, many of us are just dating very young. So we start dating when we're 15 or 16, 17 or 18. So, we're just not really interested in our values at that point in time. We don't really care. We're looking for fun. We're looking for feeling nice and feeling that we're having a good time. And we're looking to find someone who wants to, dance with us or bowl with us or do a nice fun TikTok thing with us, or, keep us company or give us a good reputation, or, to adventure through life with and to experiment with. And at the age of 15, 16, 17 or 18, we haven't even really contemplated our futures. So we're getting very, very comfortable with assessing what a good relationship is, as a 15-year-old does. For a 15-year-old, if this person is trustworthy, loving, honest and fun, and this person is respectful of boundaries and, is attractive, that's a very, very, very good outcome for a 15-year-old, and that's a great outcome for a 16-year-old, and it's a wonderful outcome for a 17-year-old, but it's not enough if you're 25, it's not enough if you're raising a family, it's not enough if you're 32. And because we've started our relationships so young, we take our understanding of relationships when we were young, which is what a good relationship looks like and feels like, which is emotional and physical compatibility, and we haven't really upgraded it to this whole recognition of, but the future, which is not a concern of 15-year-olds really, if you think about it, the future requires me to have a deeper sense of self-knowledge, a deeper sense of what my values are, and therefore I have to change my whole tactic to being able to analyze whether this relationship is good enough, and I have to add this whole section of intellectual intelligence. It doesn't mean I wasn't bright as a 15-year-old, it just means I wasn't particularly concerned. I had other ways of assessing a good relationship. You know, it's like if you buy a if you buy a car when you're 20 or you buy a car when you're 60, you need it to give you different things. You know, if you buy shoes when you're 20, they just need to look good. When you're 60, they need to be supportive, and they need to, you know, understand your foot structure and understand your, there's new considerations as you grow older. And when we're 15 and 16 and 17, the considerations are very immediate. They are very EP based. And for a relationship to work in the long term, it's got to be IEP. It's got to bring in those questions of values. And we have to recognize that the information that we learnt intuitively when we dated in our teens is good information. It's not invalid information, it's just incomplete information. And if we don't make that conscious switch to say, okay, I have to add a whole new muscle to how I gauge whether a relationship is good, it can't just feel as good as it felt when I was 15, it's got to satisfy more criteria. If I don't make that conscious decision, I'll be making a 15-year-old's decision for who I marry, and I'm going to find that that's just not good enough. So that's what happened to us. We got schooled and we got trained young and we got romanticized, and hopefully soon we'll discuss how to go about making sure that those values are really there.